call you in.
Call you in, whichever you like.
I'll mute myself and turn the video off.
Okay. Thank you. Right, Clonmel Pow. Good afternoon, all. So, start going through, and welcome. So, go through the agenda. Any apologies, Carol?
Yes, apologies from Councillor Ian McIntosh.
Okay. I think that's the only one then, isn't it? So, it's pleasing to see that actually everybody's here. That's excellent. Okay, so if we start off then by going through the minutes of the previous meeting on 7th of February.
Chair, they were sent around this morning, so apologies for the late arrival. I hope that members have had the opportunity of looking at them. And if I got some nods.
All right. Is everybody content with the contents? Yeah, looks like it. No dispensation, no. Okay. So could we have a proposal and a seconder that the chairs can sign them?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor William. And Nigel. That's that. Right, any declarations of interest from anyone? Claire, yeah.
Yes, Chair, when we come to discuss the interest in dispensations, then I'd just like to declare that I've got a farming background.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
In which case, Chair, Claire will be able to participate in the debate, but won't be able to vote in accordance with the existing dispensations available to all members.
That's fine, thank you. Anyone else? And by the way, has everybody that's on this committee completed the declarations of interest, Carol?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. So we're setting the standard. Right. Report of the head of legal.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon.
Right.
Councillor Beverley and Councillor Williams got hands up, Chair.
Oh, sorry. So, Councillor Beverley.
Sorry, apologies. I'm the same as Claire, actually. I'm not directly farming, but my father is, so I presume really I should declare an interest as well in the dispensation, item number 9.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor William, is that the same for you?
Chair, I'm a partner in a farm business that is in receipt of the current single farm payment, and I've declared that previously on when matters have arisen. So it would only be consistent for me to do the same here. I did try to get your attention a little earlier, but if I might say that under apologies, I wanted to note that I'm unlikely to be able to stay beyond just after 3 p.m. So I believe Councillor Liz had some time restriction as well, which you brought to your attention, but in my case it would be after 3 o'clock, so it may be that the matter will resolve itself in that respect.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. I don't think it will be an hour and a half, but or even an hour perhaps.
Okay,
Thank you for coming forward. Okay, 5.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. So on to my report, which starts at page 3 of the agenda bundle. Item A on the report deals with general standards issues, and members will see that we had a refresher training on the code of conduct on the 15th of April of this year. I think the training went down very well. That's the impression I got from speaking to members. You'll see, Chair and members, that the session was recorded and was made available to those who were not able to attend. And as of the 6th of June, there were only 2 councillors. I didn't quite understand. 2 councillors plus two other councillors who.
Yeah.
Didn't quite understand. Sorry.
Sorry. So 2 councillors haven't completed, watched the recording, and then there were 2 other councillors who only attended part of the live recording of the live session. So they haven't completed the course. Obviously.
Okay, so Chair, what we'll do, we'll contact those individuals to remind them that they need to complete the course, and if for those who didn't attend the session, there are some questions, I understand, which have been set by the trainer, which they'll need to complete to make sure that we are assured as a standards committee that they've had the training and understood it.
Yeah, that's necessary.
Thank you, Chair. Members happy with that? With that course? Thank you. Chair, you'll see that in terms of members' attendance, initially there were 4 members which had an attendance record of less than 60%. But errors were found for 2 list councillors, and one councillor was advised that their attendance was due to sickness. There is one councillor who has confirmed that the data seems to be correct, but hasn't provided a reason for their poor attendance. And so the suggestion is that the chair writes to that individual to indicate and ask for the reasons why their attendance falls below a level which this committee feels is not acceptable.
Right, Councillor Bev, I think you were first.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to check, Clive, does the group leader get notified as well of this particular situation?
We have in the past notified group leaders, but I suspect that you may not have been a group leader at the relevant time, Councillor Bev, so apologies.
No, that's fine. I meant in general, as a general question anyway. I don't know who this person relates to, and that's absolutely fine. But I just meant in general, does that, because
Yeah.
obviously we need to address this, don't we?
We do.
Thank you.
And Councillor Liz? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Councillor Liz is still on mute.
Apologies, Chair. I was just about to say, I joined the council at a mid-term point and I wasn't aware of the process to be followed for members being on any other business and that being credited to them. I just wondered if all new members now are aware of the process and whether that had been, publicised and people have been reminded of what they needed to do.
I think that members, when we contact them to see what the reasons for they're going below the 60% level, there is a discussion at that stage that, and I'm sure that Carol will explain to them that particular attendance will be ticked off, if you see what I mean, that they will be deemed to have attended.
But should that not be before it gets to that point, Chair?
Well, I think we have told them, but I think Councillor Liz, I think it's probably appropriate to remind people at this stage.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. No, okay, thank you.
Chair, on to referrals from the Ombudsman. Members will see that there are three matters here. One's been investigated. One's been investigated, dealt with by another standards authority. Members will be aware of that. And the third is also being investigated. So we'll see what the process is for those 2 which have been investigated, and this committee doesn't know the details of. Jonathan.
What prospect is there, Clive, of how useful would it be for us to write to the Ombudsman pointing out that the first case on the grid, that investigation's now been ongoing for more than a year? I know that I see elsewhere in the papers about the resourcing level at the Ombudsman's office, but I as you know, I continue to be concerned about the duration of cases. So just welcome your thoughts about whether it would be a productive use of the committee's time to point to air its concerns or not.
Jonathan, it's the prerogative of this committee to put their concerns to the Ombudsman, and far from me to suggest we shouldn't do so. But you may be aware, and you probably are aware, that the Ombudsman at this moment in time has concerns elsewhere, and is actually having an independent investigation into some of its processes. I suspect it's not good. I suspect that some of its resources is being pointed in that direction and not to this. So I'm more than happy to write on behalf of the committee, but I suspect that's the response I'll get. Chair, for those who don't know, a former member of the Ombudsman's team put something in the social media which was inappropriate and political nature. That individual has left the organisation, and there's now an investigation as to whether that individual has influenced decisions made within the organisation. And there's an independent team which had been appointed only 2 weeks ago to look at that issue.
What are members' views as to whether we should perhaps express our concerns about the time taken by the Ombudsman's office? It's an ongoing problem, I must admit, ever since I joined the Standards Committee. 9 years now. But that doesn't mean to say we shouldn't consider making our views known. Any thoughts?
I don't see why we shouldn't.
No.
Yes, I think we should still write to the Ombudsman. You know, it is an ongoing issue. We've seen this happen in a number of cases, so I think we should be highlighting that.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Sorry, William.
Thank you. No, so I don't have the film star good looks of the person in question, so I'm very grateful to you. I think it would be very appropriate indeed for us to write expressing that concern. I've known over time various people who've been subject to, from one angle or other of interactions with the Ombudsman's office, and particularly if people are at the receiving end of some sort of offensive or inappropriate sort of engagement, and it can be incredibly wearing, and the whole issue of things becoming protracted can be really undermining people's well-being, whether they're the accused or they're sort of caught up in some other issue. And I think, notwithstanding Clive's valid points regarding the particular pickle that the wider Ombudsman's office is in at the moment over this particular matter, I think it would be entirely appropriate for us to register these concerns, because as Claire and others have said, it's only right and proper that we do so.
Thank you. Any other observations?
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. Okay. It seems that we're agreed on this, so yes, we'll arrange for that to go to the Ombudsman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Chair, on to item D, which is the dispensation. And at this stage, perhaps Councillor Allen, can we call you back into the meeting, please, if you can hear us?
I think he was going to switch the microphone off.
Alan, yeah, you hear us.
Hello, Clive.
Thanks, Alan.
I found you at last. I have so many screens open, I can find you for a moment.
Lovely, okay. Members will see from the report that at its meeting on the 7th of March of this year, full council considered a motion on the issue of sustainable farming scheme. There was some considerable disquiet about members that the dispensation which has previously been granted by this committee for members to speak and make representations but not vote with regard to farming and agricultural matters should be reviewed with a view to allowing members to vote. So, Chair, the background to that is that in February of 2022, Councillor Elwyn Vaughan applied to the Standards Committee for a dispensation to dealing with farming and agricultural matters. On that occasion, Councillor Vaughan asked for the dispensation to be granted to allow members to speak and to make representations, but not to vote. That request was agreed by the Standards Committee at the time. At the time, it was estimated by officers that about 70% of the council membership had some form of link with farming and agriculture. So the standards granted dispensation requested by Councillor Elwing on that occasion, and that dispensation was reapproved by this standards committee at its meeting on the 5th of December. So members, at the council meeting on the 7th of March, or before the meeting on the 7th of March, I, as the monitoring officer, wrote to members just to remind them of their obligations with regard to declaring personal and prejudicial interests. And in particular, I advised that members who were in receipt of a farming subsidy, or had relatives or close personal acquaintances who were in receipt of a farming subsidy, should declare their interest in the debate. They could participate in the debate, and they can make representations, but they should not be able to vote. Members will see from my report that there were 55 members present at that meeting at the time, 25 of which declared an interest. So just under 50% of the membership who were present declared an interest, and the motion on that occasion was passed by 28 to 1 against. Chair, last week I wrote to all group leaders asking whether or not they wish to nominate individuals from the groups to come and make representations to this committee on that particular issue, the voting issue, if I put it like that. And Councillor Aled has kindly agreed to come along and give the benefit of his views to the meeting. And we have one written submission from Councillor Angela Ange. So Carol will read that out. But I think, Chair, for the moment, I'd like to ask Councillor Aled to make whatever representations you wish to make to the committee. Thank you, Councillor Aled.
Thank you, Clive, and good afternoon, everyone. I wasn't really aware. I didn't realise that this was just confined to the agricultural farming question. I thought this was more of dispensations in general across the council. But looking at the actual farming issue, it's the frustration of most members is their ability to represent their community. I wouldn't be surprised if 75% of my community in my ward had connections with farming. If I and my family were the only farmers in Powys, I can see the relevance then, but I'm not. I'm in a huge number of other residents across Powys involved in farming, and it's that ability to represent our communities which is a real issue here. And then, you know, we could look and find some linkages to most members. Well, for example, the example was given to me. Is this a live discussion, recorded and available to the public? Just
yes, it is.
It's webcast, Councillor Aled, yes.
So I won't use any names in that case, but there were people allowed to vote in that debate who had strong connections to a political organisation, and if we were to criticise in that through that motion the performance of the Welsh government, it might do damage to their political aspirations. So it's not necessarily that direct connection to farming, but there's so many other connections in that debate. The chances are, in that debate, there would be a letter sent to the Welsh government, and whoever had connections with the Welsh government would have an interest. So that's how I see it. So from my point of view, if everybody is upfront and clear on their connections with whatever it is, whether it's farming, other organizations, if that is stated at the beginning of the meeting, they should be free to vote and speak and vote. When we had that wind farm issue a number of years ago, people who had the pylons going through their or over their ground were allowed to speak and vote on that issue. I do think this restriction is far too tight in this circumstance, and I would err on the side of caution and not put these restrictions in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Everett. Yes, it's a difficult one.
Carol,
Can you read out, Councillor Ange?
Yep, so this is from Councillor Ange of the independent group. So she's saying, dear committee, I would like to just say that as a lot of members represent rural communities, I felt that this particular item did not have a monetary value or represent any personal gain to anybody. We should have been able to represent our communities by voting. I do understand that it was a request to Welsh Government on the wider subject and asking for a longer consultation time, as we know nothing about what they are likely to do. So representing our residents was most important to us with rural wards. Not being able to do this was very concerning. Thank you for hearing the statement. Councillor Ange Williams, independent member.
Thank you. I think what might be useful is if you could give us a definition of this personal and prejudicial interest, because that's one of the main criteria that we've got to look at, isn't it?
Well, in terms of personal interest, the issue was it was talking about the current farming subsidy, and it's being replaced by the new subsidy.
Yeah.
So anybody who has a business who are in receipt of a subsidy at this moment in time, anybody or any person with a relative or close associate who were in receipt of a subsidy at this time, all those individuals, of course, were potentially affected because of the change to the new subsidy. So there will be some that might not change, but there was a potential that anybody would be effective, and because of that, and the code itself requires individuals to declare their personal and prejudicial in that matter, and precludes them from participating in the vote, participating in the debate and voting, unless there is a dispensation from the Standards Committee. The committee on the last occasion took the view that those individuals had expertise which the general membership of the council should have the benefit of hearing, and that's the reason why Standards on that occasion decided that it would be appropriate for those individuals to participate in the debate and to make written representations, but because of the potential pecuniary, and pecuniary will always be equated to a personal and prejudicial interest in itself. Those who had a personal prejudicial interest because of their financial involvement, they should not be able to vote in that issue. As it happens on this occasion, you'll see from the report that 55 members were present, 25 declared an interest, and the vote was 128-1 against. So the issue was dealt with by council, and I'm sure that all members would agree it was dealt with by council in an appropriate way, because the result was the result. There is no, if it had been lost, it would have been still appropriate, but it was dealt with in an appropriate way.
Is there likely to be a further debate on this?
Chair, there will always be debates about farming and agriculture.
Yes.
There will be. There may even be one in the next meeting, and hence that's why I was keen to get this on the agenda for this meeting. The next meeting of council is on the 11th of July.
Councillor Allard, would you mind if we ask you 1 or 2 questions?
Yes, could I just quickly respond first, Chair? To be honest, the result of the vote was of no consequence at all, to be honest, whether it is for or against. And we've got to make clear that the council was just commenting on that consultation. We are not the decision makers in this process. We are just commenting on a consultation. And if we were part of the cabinet of the Welsh Government, of course, there would be interest to declare, but we were just commenting on a consultation, which is really very long arms length stuff. Sorry, just to make that comment before you. Any questions?
Yeah, fine, thank you. Right, does anybody want to ask Councillor Allard any questions?
No, can I speak?
Yes.
I haven't got any questions as such, just some clarity, if I might. As I understand it, it's incumbent on council members to alert council to the fact that they have an interest in a particular
Correct.
subject that's being discussed, and that's a standard procedure.
Correct.
And in this instance, that's standard situation where somebody says, I have an interest here. Does it mean that that individual is automatically excluded unless they specifically ask for a dispensation to remain? Is that how it works?
It's not quite that, Russell. So where you have a personal and prejudicial interest,
Yes.
so if you have a personal interest, you can still participate in the debate,
Right.
but most personal interests automatically become prejudicial.
Right.
There are some exceptions to that rule,
Yes.
but most personal interests are automatically prejudicial, and when it becomes prejudicial, that precludes them from participating in any debate unless they have a dispensation from this standards committee. So this standards committee has given, and they give it in December of 22, a dispensation for members to debate and make written representations on farming and agricultural matters. But specifically, this committee decided that they should not then vote. And the reason why they took that view was they thought that the council membership as a whole would benefit from the expertise of people within the industry.
Sure. Yeah.
And that in itself would be hopefully be persuasive and make sure the council came to the right conclusions. So that's the reason for it. So you're almost right, but not quite.
Right. Okay.
I don't think you want to.
Yeah, it is a question for Councillor Alid. The dispensation at the moment allows you to speak and make written representations. So how is this current limitation affecting you and your colleagues now? Because you said you made comments about entering into a discussion, and in the particular case that we're referring to back in March, this was a policy issue with the Senate. So with the dispensation as it currently stands, how is this limiting your actions at the full council meeting?
Because it potentially excludes 75% of the council who have interest with or some connection with farming. And sometimes it is difficult to understand those connections, how strong those connections are. As Councillor Beverley just mentioned, her father's a farmer. Is Councillor Beverley going to inherit the 10,000 acre estate that her father farms, or has she been excluded from the will? Nobody really knows the extent of that connection. But I must stress it's so important at the beginning to explain your connections, and after that you should be free to represent your community. And if people think that you've gone over the top, in any case, they can always report you to the ombudsman or Clive, the monitoring officer in our situation. And it's got to be understood, if 75% are precluded from voting, that other 25% could be whipped within a council. So it doesn't matter what you say within the debate, that 25% could be whipped to vote in a certain way. Is that, is that a reasonable situation to put Powys County Council in?
Chair, have I misunderstood? Because the dispensation we agreed to allow members to speak.
To speak, yes.
But not vote.
But not vote. Yeah, so I think what Nigel's trying to say is, does it make so much difference, the fact that they can't vote, even though they can speak?
And that's my point about whipping. It doesn't matter how persuasive your argument is, there's a potential for the ones that are still in the chamber to be whipped to vote in a certain direction. So it doesn't matter if you're Barack Obama or anybody else, there's no way you're going to have a an outcome that is satisfactory to your community.
I think John Johnson's had his hand up for a while, so can I come to you, Jonathan, for a moment?
Thank you. Councillor Allard, is this an issue in relation to debates concerning the sustainable farming scheme specifically, or is it the same point as regards any issue affecting agriculture?
I'd put it far wider than just agriculture. I'd talk about schools, school reorganisation, many issues that council deals with. I didn't realise at the beginning that this item was solely restricted to farming. I thought it was about dispensation for a much wider range of issues across the council. It's about the individual councillor's ability to represent their community, and that's what it boils down to. And if you're very clear at the start of the discussion what your links are to that sector, that the school system or the farming community, if you're clear at the beginning of the words you say or before you vote what your connection is, I think you should be free to vote.
So, as I understand it, and forgive me if I've got it wrong, but the agricultural issue that was debated has caused this concern to be spoken about now, because there are so many people within the cabinet who have an agricultural link. Whereas normally, if you're talking about other matters, a lesser percentage will have a link and it doesn't really cause a concern. The issue seems to be the process that the council has to work to in terms of dispensation. In my view, it should be the same for all, whatever that is, whether it's debate, verbal, written, and voting, or as I understand currently the case, written, verbal, but not voting. If it's only 5 or 6 people who can't vote, perhaps that doesn't cause an issue. But if it's, as has been related here by Councillor Allard, 50, and yourself, 50, 60 people, that's a considerable chunk.
But Russell, on the day, there were 55 members present and
Yes.
25 declared an interest. So less than 50% of those present declared an interest.
Okay.
Less than 50%.
Okay. But it's still a huge amount, isn't it? I'm just trying to say that
So
the Standards Committee approach to declaring an interest should be the same across the board, except in unusual circumstances where perhaps a dispensation or a decision has to be made. Am I getting that right?
the code of conduct, which applies throughout Wales,
Yes,
is that if you have a personal interest,
understood.
and that personal interest is a prejudicial one because it doesn't apply, the exemptions don't apply,
Yes,
then in those circumstances, the code of conduct requires that you declare your interest
yes,
and you do not participate in the debate at all. So the code of conduct for the whole of Wales is
Right.
you don't participate
okay,
at all
right,
unless you've got a dispensation. So go back to what the code of conduct says,
yes,
and then give an exception to the code of conduct. Not in my opinion, totally ignore the code of conduct, because the code of conduct applies to every single county council and every town and community council in Wales. It applies to the whole lot.
but this dispensation that we currently have refers to everything, not just agriculture.
No, we have different dispensations for different
Different things.
topics.
Okay, right. Okay,
Most of which, if there is a pecuniary, namely financial interest, and that financial interest inevitably will amount to a prejudicial interest, the general view of this standard committee and previous standard committee is where there's a financial interest, a potential financial interest, they should not vote. But that's a matter for this committee. That is a matter for this committee.
Also, we need to consider public perception as well. You know, if we did we've got a dispensation to allow discussion, but if you then say that they can vote, what is the public perception then?
Yep, okay.
Claire?
Yeah, I listened to the council debate online, and I can understand the frustration and confusion that was quite clear in the chamber. You know, and our councillors are there to reflect the demographic diversity of the county, and of course, you know, they have to be able to represent their communities properly. Would it, you know, a question really, is it possible to amend that if there's no financial interest, then members, if they declare an interest but there's no financial interest, are they still able to vote then? Could we tighten up the definition slightly?
We can always tighten up the definition, but the danger is, of course, when you're talking about farming subsidies, there's and this is what was being discussed, that has a financial aspect, doesn't it? You know, the ability to continue to receive a farming subsidy, your solution wouldn't have produced a different result on this particular occasion.
Okay.
Jonathan's got his hand up, Chair.
So, is that a historical hand, Jonathan? Or is it a new one?
It's a new one.
Okay, yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. Clive, there are criteria for the granting of dispensations. I think that's the Standards Committee granted dispensation Wealth Regs 2001. They are quite lengthy. I don't know whether you have a summary of those to hand. If not, I can try and summarize them.
I don't have that to hand, Jonathan. As I said, our previous standards committees have taken the view that where there is a pecuniary interest involved, that should happen in those circumstances. So I think that's what I am really.
Yeah, and the particular issue that a number of members are in receipt of a sustainable farming scheme payment, and therefore derive have a direct financial interest in a debate on sustainable farming scheme payments. And this particular debate on the 7th of March was indeed about sustainable farming schemes. So it was clear that a number of members. So can I just ask on numbers? So that is so 25. That's fewer than half of the total number of members. There's 63 members overall. Is that right?
68 members, but there were only 55 members present in the meeting.
The numbers are significant, members of the committee, because one of the criteria is that no fewer than half of the members may have that interest, and there are a number of other criteria which relate to an inability of a member to participate would upset the political balance. The nature of the member's interest would not damage public confidence in the conduct of relevant authorities' business. And indeed, the interest is common to the member and a significant proportion of the general public. There are more, but I think those are the main ones, I think, Clive. So
absolutely, Jonathan, and of course the main part of that would be the numbers game. So there were 55 members in the room, 25 declared an interest, so that's less than half. And then all the other issues which you then indicated about the public perception, which is what the chair was referring to earlier on, is about public perception of how that reacts, looks to the public.
Thank you, Clive. And
Thank
may I
you.
just, whilst I have the floor, may I just explain that whilst I have two relatives who are engaged in farming, I've considered whether or not I have an interest today. And the item of business for us today is whether or not to extend the current dispensation to members of Powys County Council. And so they aren't members of Powys County Council. And my analysis is that I don't have an interest, but
I agree with you,
just to
Jonathan.
say that I did stop to pause just to consider that.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just a thought, that is, the debate is all about Welsh government and how the subsidy is going to change, rather than an issue that is local to Powys. Does that make a difference?
I don't think it makes a difference, Chair, on the basis that the new farming subsidy scheme, such as it may be, and without the consultation at the time, if you recall, applies to the whole of Wales.
Yeah.
And therefore, it applies to those members of Powys County Council who were currently in receipt of a farming subsidy and may or may not have a new farming subsidy. And B, applies to those members of the council who have relatives or close personal associates who were in receipt of farming subsidy and may be similarly affected by a new subsidy. So you have to apply the code of conduct to each individual's circumstance. And just because it's of general importance, well, you have to follow the code of conduct. The code of conduct suggests that members should not even be allowed to speak.
Yeah, unless they have a dispensation.
Unless they have a dispensation. So this committee has agreed we should capture the knowledge and expertise of individuals who are in the farming and agricultural sectors to come to the right conclusion.
Just to follow on what Clive has just described, you know, the code of conduct is very clear, sets out the rules. Jonathan has made mention to the criteria for making dispensations, which is another set of formal rules for us to follow and for us to make a decision. So I don't think the issue is the important thing for discussion. It may slow things up, but my view is that we look at the criteria for awarding dispensations and see whether we've stuck to the rules, abided by the rules that last 2 years ago, and to see if there's any flexibility according to that criteria to change our decision. I think the issue is starting to make the decision making a little bit hazy.
Does anybody else have any views? I think otherwise might have to think about coming to a vote. Anybody else want to add anything further?
Jonathan.
Jonathan.
Apologies for taking the floor again, but this is a complex matter which I think the committee members wish to take very careful consideration of, and certainly Councillor Allard are very mindful of the particular circumstances of county councillors and the nature of the rurality of the area and its dependence on agriculture. My own thoughts are that everybody has an interest, everybody has interests. It's about maintaining public confidence in the integrity and standards of decision making by members. Certainly, it's vital that county councillors' interests in agriculture be declared, and the current dispensation provides for that. I'm mindful of the numbers of members who were unable to vote. my thoughts at this stage, having approached this with a very open mind on reading the papers, is that that does fall below 50% of all members. And that is hard to square with the criteria for granting a dispensation, certainly for allowing county councillors to be able to vote on a matter which, if they have an interest, it is that because they've got a personal and prejudicial financial interest. And therefore, at this stage, on balance, I'm erring towards the side of maintaining the current dispensation as it stands in relation to sustainable farming scheme matters, that members should be able to participate in the vote in the debate, but not vote if they have a direct financial interest in the matter under consideration. But I realise that it's not a straightforward issue.
Thanks, Jonathan. We appreciate your expertise in this. Thank you. Councillor Liz.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not an expert in this, but I did read through the documentation on personal and prejudicial interest, and I was in the chamber when the matter that we've been discussing was debated. I'm really pleased that Councillor Elwyn put forward the request for dispensation on people being able to speak, because that's my understanding of what should always happen in those circumstances when people need to represent their communities. But I do have a difficulty when it comes to a pecuniary interest. And so I think I would err on the side of leaving things as they are, with people having that opportunity to express their views, to be persuasive, but not to vote on the matter or, you know, intimidate other people in a way that might change their views on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Liz. Anyone else? No. Right, I think we probably ought to go for a vote then. So all those in favour of maintaining the current dispensation, which allows people to speak but not to vote, would you like to raise your hand?
5.
5. And those against? No. Okay. So, as you've heard, Councillor Allard, the committee has decided that we won't extend the dispensation to allow voting. But thank you very much indeed for attending and putting your views so fairly and strongly. Thank you very much indeed. It was very helpful of you to come.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm just slightly disappointed that I'm the only one that's turned up, but thank you.
Thank you, Aled. Really appreciate it.
Aled.
Thank you.
Chair, so if I then turn back to the rest of my report, so on to page 5 of the bundle, which is a quick reference to the Ombudsman's Wales Our Findings website, where members will see an update on a monthly basis, so what's happening in that sphere. And again, F is again a link to decisions of the Adjudication Panel for Wales. And you know, there's a link there which members can use, and if and when we come to a hearing where it needs to be referenced, we'll pull out the relevant case law for you. Item G is we've discussed the National Forum of Standards, which met on the 29th of January, and the purpose of this section is simply to have a record of the formal minutes of the meeting, which are found in Appendix 2. We on a previous meeting, I think, Stefan, you gave a verbal account of what was said, so I'm not intending to go through that because we've already been through it. It's just a formality to record the records. And then the last thing on my item is to record the next date of the next meeting as the 2 p.m. on the 30th of October.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Clive. Any questions of Clive? No? Okay, we'll move on. The next matter then is the annual meeting of group leaders.
Chair, you'll see that Carol has put together a summary of the discussions with various group leaders, which members will find on pages 21 to 22 of the pack. The purpose of this item on the agenda is for members to look at the summary and to confirm or otherwise whether the summary is a good record, summary of what took place.
Well, first of all, thank you, Carol, for putting it all together.
Mm.
Okay, can Councillor William?
Thank you, Chair. I thought it was a really good summary of the overall of the two sessions, the main session and the subsequent one, and I'm content to propose that we either note it or accept it, whichever the case be. Just the one point that I think is worth us perhaps reflecting on it just a little is whether we give any guidance in terms of group members and their ability to bring along maybe a group manager, whip, or whatever, because I think it was widely felt that the session led by where Councillor Matthew Dorrance attended alongside the whip of the Labour group was particularly comprehensive, and that may have been because of the sort of interaction with the two group members, and whether or not that it's worth us framing that in a way that could be incorporated into future practice. That's just a reflection from myself.
Yeah, I thought that this group had already agreed at that meeting that that's something which we would
Maybe we have. Okay. Yeah.
Make available on the next sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
thought that's what we decided.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Jonathan.
Well, I was going to go further and wonder if whether we could encourage the leader to be accompanied by another member of the group.
Absolutely. We'll incorporate if that's I think I'm seeing nods all around Jonathan. So I think we could put that into the blurb which we send out on the next occasion, right? And just to remind members that this would be something which would be maybe beneficial.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Good.
Right, and extended for 20 to 30 minutes. And any other comments?
Well, yes, it's really just progressing on from the other conversations, Jonathan and Clive. Yeah, the content of the form was an issue for everybody. It's not we know that it's not a well-designed form. They're struggling, and I just wonder whether we, in addition to indicating issues and the information we want, that we set some examples, example answers that we would expect to see, or break the questions up so they're quite specific.
Yeah, Clive has been this form was done together with the other monitoring officers in Wales, so it's an agreed form. So unless
but it is not a prescribed form.
No.
We can't change it. The responses which we had from various group leaders was different.
Yep.
I think we all thought that some were better than others, and my not concern, but it is a concern that if we ask specific questions, we are spoon feeding group leaders. And that's a matter for members. Members decide whether that they want to do that or not. But if you ask a specific question, you get a specific answer, won't you? So rather than leave it flexible for members to decide, and then make a judgment on what you receive.
My concern with that is that keeping so much flexibility at such an early stage of the process it's not, we're not allowing some group leaders to develop their skills and improve the quality of what they're writing. I think longer term, I would support open-ended questions, but I think we're on a journey, and for some groups, they're on a longer journey than others, and I don't see it as spoon feeding. I see this under the category of helping and supporting those who are struggling to understand some aspects of what the code of conduct simply is.
Okay.
Oh, it's got some hands up. Councillor Bev, only because you're on the left.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Well, I did put my hand up actually before, as Clive sort of started to speak. So I think I was trying to formulate something in my brain along the lines of perhaps what Clive was saying, but in a way, I do think I don't think we should alter the questions to a vast degree as to that we give these examples, because if we give examples, all you'll get in the form from some people is you'll just get a requote of the example. That's what you'll get. I've no problem with amending it slightly, because I think we probably perhaps do need to amend it slightly, but I think perhaps the next time, so obviously it'll be sort of what, about 10 months time, whenever it'll be, when it goes out again, perhaps we should make just explain a little bit more what we're expecting, as in, please complete it fully. If you don't understand, please come back, and maybe we should perhaps review the question sheet before we actually maybe give it back if we don't think it's sufficient, perhaps, with a nice little note to say, could you expand on 1, 3 and 5, or whatever it might be. I just think if we prescribe it too much, we'll just get back what we're asking. And really, as group leaders and as all councillors, it is our job to understand, to not obviously not in the great depth that Clive will understand the code of conduct, but that is part of our job. We should understand the code of conduct, and if we don't, we should be asking for more help to help us to understand it. That as all councillors and specifically group leaders, but we should understand. So if we don't, we should be asking for more help. So sorry, that was a long-winded way of saying that perhaps we ought not to change the form too much. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor. I think that's quite an interesting idea. Those reports that are very light, that we send them back and ask them to reconsider what they put, and if they can expand on any part of it.
Yep. Claire, can I come back after Claire?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Chair. I was going to suggest the same thing, that group leaders have the opportunity to send the reports firstly to Carol, and if something isn't right, then they have the opportunity to refine that before it's circulated to the Standards Committee.
Yeah, thank you. Good, Clive.
Chair,
Good idea.
my suggestion would be, I hear the concerns of Nigel, and I think there are concerns throughout the whole of the Standards Committee on those issues. Chair, my suggestion would be is that following the meeting, which will be on the 30th of October, that we not as part of the meeting, but as a workshop, offline, so to speak, have a workshop on the form, and we can have it won't be too far away from the last version, so it'll be relatively fresh. Okay, albeit 5 months, but it's still relatively fresh. I'm just wondering whether members would just like a workshop on the form, so that we are doing it well in advance of the next occasion, so that we're not caught on the hop. We're not trying to amend the form in a rush. If we are going to amend it, let's do it in October. That's my suggestion.
Yep. I think if we are going to go down that route, I think it would be a good idea to have 1, 2, 3 group leaders involved in that as well, so that we're developing the form together. And that might help them understand it.
If we're having group leaders, I think we should have them all.
Well, it's certainly invite all,
yeah. Okay. Anyway, that was my suggestion, Chair. But it's for the committee to decide, not for me to. I'm just giving a suggestion.
Right, Councillor Bev?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's an excellent idea. I think that's probably a really good plan. If we do want to tweak the form, let's take the group lead, the people that actually completed the form. Let's have a half an hour or an hour session. Let's just let's just chat it through in the autumn. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so does everybody agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Right. And anything else on the group leaders session?
That needs to be included now in the annual report.
Oh, yeah.
So I was just saying, members, that the report on the meetings with the group leaders will now be added as an appendix in the annual report, which you're looking at next on the agenda.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to the annual report, which is basically using last year's report as a standard with a few minor modifications and brought up to date. So does anybody have any questions they want to raise, any observations?
Carol has one amendment which she suggests that she makes to page 30.
Yes, yeah, so on page 30 of your pack, at the top of the page, it refers to cases that were considered by the APW in respect of community councillors. But I have repeated that on page 32 of your pack, under the section in respect of the Standards Community Subcommittee. So the reference on page 30 will be deleted, as it's actually showing under the correct place on page 32.
Thank you, Carol.
Right, Councillor second.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Carol for pulling together this report. It's a lot of work, and I think it's a really good reflection of the work the committee's done this year. Will you present the report, Chair, to full council? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so I'm laughing is that unfortunately I'm going to probably be away on the 11th.
Okay.
And I was going to ask you whether you would like to do that.
Great, thanks.
Are you available on that day?
I'll check and I'll let Carol know. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
You weren't expecting that, were you?
No, I'll put my hand down now.
Good. Thank you, members. Thank you, Carol, for all the hard work in doing it. It's a thankless task and it takes up so much time. So thank you very much.
Okay. Anything anybody wants to say about the annual report? No. Okay. Let's move on to observations of the council meetings by Standards Committee members. So first of all, we've all read the reports. Do anybody that's observed the meetings want to add anything to them or highlight anything?
Nigel and Russell?
The only thing I'd like to add is I attended the council meeting that reviewed the midterm financial plan, and it was a long meeting, complex meeting, and as I alluded to in the report, it was well led. You know, I know the chair's here, but it was very helpful to have milestones throughout the day, so which tempered everybody's enthusiasm to have their say. There were a couple of issues that I put at the end of my notes that I thought we should reflect on here today. One was and I don't want to open up the discussion earlier on, but I was very surprised that, given the nature of the topic, the midterm budget, which covered every aspect of the council's business, not one member declared an interest. Not one, despite the encouragement by the chair. So that was one issue. And the other one, which really comes back to a comment you made earlier on about public perception, which is one independent member continually asked the chair and the monitoring officer to check that those people who were joining the meeting online did have their cameras and on, and they were in attendance. And this was repeated throughout the meeting. until the monitoring officer was quite clear that the individual had to declare the reason why he was interrupting the meeting in that respect. But generally, those people who were online had their cameras off, and the public in the public gallery or who were also online must have questioned their perception of what was happening. And the other one, which again is connected with public perception, is which again I pointed out in the report, that the vast number of members that use laptop computers and mobile phones to continue with business throughout the day. I just question what does the public view of the person who's representing their community not being engaged with the meeting. But yeah, it was a good use of my time. And you'll see that I did write to you to say that I'd adapted the form, the pro forma, to get those points across.
Thank you very much, yes, and I like your suggestions. In terms of the cameras aspect, can I just check with you, technically, if anybody can answer that question? It's quite often when I've been in big meetings, people are asked to turn the cameras off because of the bandwidth.
It's a bandwidth issue, and it also and Councillor Bev will probably be better at describing this than I. It's easier for the chair to control the meeting if people turn their cameras off. Councillor Bev, please give your views, because you've been in the chair.
Yeah. Probably. Sorry, I froze then a little bit. I've moved twice around the room, so sorry if I've dipped my camera off myself. I'm moving. Yeah, I think it's really difficult actually to chair a meeting that's hybrid with so many people in it, because you've got to make sure you don't miss someone's hand in the room, someone's hand on the screen. So I do understand why people and it is probably easier with rather than, if someone pings their face on and starts waving viciously, it draws your attention a little bit more when you're looking. That said, I mean, I don't know. But I suppose it's the public perception. When I was in the chair, I was always keen that people understood that it should. What I was trying to do was perform in a professional manner, to have the council seen in a professional way, that we're all, adults with common sense that can debate professionally and successfully and disagree and agree accordingly. It didn't always go to plan. It never will go to plan in any council chamber, I'm sure. But I think we all do things differently, and different chairs will do it in different ways. I was always quite keen to allow that time for people to talk a little bit more. So I probably annoyed members where I was guilty of letting people continue and have a little bit longer than perhaps the prescribed time. So we'll all do things differently, but specifically with regard to the camera, it can be easier to have them off, and it also does sometimes become a nightmare with the connectivity. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, that one.
Okay. Can I ask a question, which I probably should know the answer to, Chair and members, so forgive me because I don't. But for those viewing at home, for obvious reasons, I haven't viewed at home because I'm always in the chamber. When a member speaks, you don't see, like we have here, there is a single person. The one person who's speaking, that's my understanding, the one person that's on the screen.
And then anybody who's sitting behind them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you don't have is this array at home. All you have is the person that's speaking. So it's flashing back between individuals. So the public, I'm just asking the public perception. They don't see everybody anyway.
In my experience, well, in what I think it depends how you set it up. because you can have it set up with everybody's view, and somebody speaking, yes, it's just a little tiny thing that you can see. They don't cut, it's not, they don't take over.
But in our setup, that's not the way it's set up.
Ah, right.
We have the individual who's speaking comes full screen.
Yes.
That's right, I think, Carol.
That's my understanding.
That's my
but again,
understanding.
Yeah.
Right, well, I tested the system. I sat in the public gallery in 2 or 3 different places throughout
Right.
the day. And if the camera focused on the 2 middle circles, I would, and the speaker, the 2 rows of
Yeah.
members and myself were
Visible.
visible.
Yes.
But I thought the
that's
point you were
correct.
making, Nigel, was the people at home participating hybrid.
But the image that the public see is a very deep depth of field.
Okay.
It's not just the speaker, because I
No.
dodged out of
The issue which was being raised by the individual councillor who continued probably 4 or 5 occasions to ask the question
Yes.
was, are these people at home actually participating in the debate?
Yeah.
Are they online, or are they just there? That's what the issue was at the time, and of course it was important because of the vote on the council's budget. But thank you very much for those observations.
Yeah.
It's clearly something that if you, as sort of an independent observer, thought that the look of the council didn't look very good, because I think that's what you're saying.
Yep.
That's something that we should take on board.
Yeah, that would be my view as well.
Yeah.
It's the perception that,
Yeah.
you know, if you've got the camera switched off, you might not be there, you might go and have a cup of tea. Or,
But that's not what Nigel's point is.
But
Yeah.
but it's not just the cameras, but it's also those people that certainly on the back row
we're playing with the phones.
that have got their phones on
Yeah,
while
yeah.
the person
Yeah.
in front is talking,
Yeah.
and the cameras, there's no control on the depth of field of the camera, so everybody in view
Yeah.
is seen
Yeah.
on the camera.
But of course, reflect on what happens in the House of Commons,
Yep.
where on camera the chamber on occasions is full, but on occasions is rather empty. But when the division bell rings, that's telling everybody to come and vote, whether they've been in the chamber or not.
Yes, yeah. Yes, and any of the committees, the subcommittee, the select committees, again, when the division bell goes, they're all out.
Left, exactly. So, but thank you. I think it's something that we should think about. And you
And
know,
the mere fact that we're talking about it today,
Exactly.
the message just may ripple out.
Councillor Bev's got a hand up. And
Yes.
Yes, sorry, I've got another point, which I hope you don't mind me sharing, someone that's sat in the chair, but something that used to get me a little bit cross from a standards perspective was sweets and crisps and packets rattling. I'm really sorry, Clive's laughing, but I am really sorry, but I think we should, and I understand, yes, if we look at Westminster, and yes, goodness knows what goes on, but we are Paris and we should be professional as we can be. And that, I think, I'm quite keen that, I've always been keen that we should try our best to be professional, and I know that at the end of the day, the electorate will vote through, they want to represent them, and that's fine, and it doesn't, you know, that is fine. But I still think we should try and be as professional as we can be. So I think maybe, would it be in order, whether we continue to, a standards member continues to go, and then at a certain point we sort of do a report, or a wider report, or whether we just do something sooner. But I think perhaps it might be nice to feed back to the other members of council to say, these are just some suggestions and observations that's been witnessed, and perhaps, you know, we can't prescribe that people don't rattle a packet of biscuits, but, you know, we can suggest it's not very good.
Yes, I was at the meeting where a particular tin of biscuits was passed back and forwards in front of me. I didn't mention it here, but I can support Councillor Bev.
Chair, can I make a suggestion that I discuss the views expressed by Nigel, and I think the sentiment agreed by the committee with the current chair, the assistant, the vice chair, and the assistant vice chair, and together we can perhaps try and moderate the conduct within the chamber.
Yeah.
I suspect that we'll have real difficulty in getting people not to use their phones. But I would hope that we'd be able to say, you know, you should do it discreetly. I think it's too much to hope, Nigel. I'm
Well,
afraid.
well, it is, but if those, technically, if those phones are linked to the building's network, that is not helping the bandwidth issue that you've got. And, you know, there are,
that's true.
your bandwidth has got to be given priorities, and personal use is not a priority.
Yeah, good point.
Good point. Okay, so Chair, on the next occasion, I'll raise this in the pre-meeting, not with group leaders, well, perhaps with group leaders, but the views expressed by this committee.
Yeah, I think group leaders as well.
Yeah. Councillor William, we'll do that. We'll do it in the pre-meeting then, if that's okay with you, and you can confirm the views which have been expressed.
Apologies, Chair. My laptop appears to be failing rather bad due to bandwidth, and also I have to leave the meeting very shortly. Apologies for that. Clive, I'd be very happy to engage with you and colleagues on that point.
Okay. Thank you, William.
And
thank you. Apologies that my laptop's taken the decision for me.
Okay.
Bye for now. Thank you all.
Can I just see?
Bye-bye.
Ask Russell if he wants to add anything.
No, it's my first meeting as an observer. I have nothing to add to my report unless anyone's got any questions.
Is everybody happy to add the two suggestions that Nigel put in? Was it conclusions, and I forgot what the other one was?
Conclusion, recommendations,
And
or suggestions.
Suggestion.
Yeah.
To add to the form.
I'm seeing nods.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any dissenters, so okay. So would you mind?
Chair, can I just express my thanks to both Nigel and to Russell for attending, particularly Nigel, because it was a very long day. So thank you very much for giving up your time and both of you putting in your report to the Standards Committee. So thank you very much.
Enjoyed it.
You know, didn't Claire have to do a report? I was previous meeting. So
Yes, previous period.
Previous meeting.
yeah. Okay. Anybody else want to say anything further? In that case, we'll move on to the annual review of register of members' interests. I think my concern here is that 9 of 68 members have not, despite the repeated reminders, updated their register of interests. And I feel that as chair of the committee, I should be writing to them to remind them that they must do it.
Thank you, Chair.
Agree.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's an appropriate response. They'll then see how important it is in the view of the Standards Committee that the Chair has taken the time and trouble. I have to say that Carol has written how many times? Numerous times.
Yeah.
And so grateful for any support that you can give. Thank you very much.
And especially with all the debate about the vote of dispensations, it's important that we get that across.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Anybody else? Any comments on that? Oh, sorry, Councillor Bev.
Sorry, I was just going to ask. Sorry, my sound dipped a little bit. How many people are we waiting for?
9.
8.
Okay.
8? I thought you said there was 9. Oh.
8.
8 or 9, that's fine, whichever.
Yeah.
So,
it was 10, but somebody did do it, so it's down to 9 now, as I understand it.
okay. Yeah, perhaps, yeah, I've certainly we had a reminder the other day from Carol. Yeah, so, okay, I don't know what we do, yeah, fine.
Okay.
Yeah, because you've had 2.5 months, so you should have done it by now. Right. So yeah, there was one lay member that hadn't done it, but that lay member has now done it. Okay, annual review on the use of dispensations.
Carol, if you could indicate the result of your investigations into this, and I'll make a comment after that.
Okay, there was only the dispensation that we've just discussed earlier at this meeting that was being referred to in any of the meetings.
Yeah, so Chair, I think that's very positive in that in general terms, the code of conduct is being complied with. And the exceptions, which are the exceptions contained in the dispensations, are used not as a matter of course, but infrequently, and that's probably a good thing. So I think it probably means that the regime is probably working as well as it should do. So thank you for that, and we'll continue to monitor the number of dispensations which are used.
Excellent. Okay, although it's not officially put in there, but any other business?
Nope.
No, deafening silence.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Thank you for those at home, and I'm glad the equipment worked this time, because I remember on a couple of occasions ago, Jonathan had real difficulties. So I'm glad we got to grips with it. So thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone. I need to dash because I've got another
Yeah, you get
appointment.
on this, so,
Thank you.
okay. Thank you everybody for your attendance, and thank you, Clive, for your detailed monitoring report as usual.
No problem. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Carol, for all your hard work.
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks everybody for coming.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.